Planning Commission, Economic Development Commission. I know some of you might be on both of the Planning Commission and Economic Development Commission. But really today is we're hoping to kind of just have a collaborative discussion with both of the commissions around opportunities of commercial, retail, industrial employment and the needs within the community. I think it'll be a really good discussion. We're going to go through a couple things first is Alan's going to go over really just to talking about the zoning. Because we're a land plan state, I think that's helpful to everyone kind of understand what the zoning is with it, because we have to work with inside this boundary, which you folks on the Planning Commission know, but it's always just helpful to kind of understand, we do have these constraints that the state does put on us from that standpoint there. So, and then I'll go through, the city did a economic opportunity analysis, a couple of slides. That's also another requirement that the state puts on cities is to do an EOA from that standpoint too. So that forces us to kind of work within this boundary, right? To think about like where these zones are at from that standpoint there. And then lastly, we did last year for 2024 a retail market study that showed, we're losing opportunities to capture some of that retail and commercial components within our city. And that kind of opens up the discussion of thinking about, should we be looking at some different types of zoning in certain areas, for those opportunities, and what would that look like from there? So with that, Ryan, you're the chair of the EDC, and Ben, you're the chair of the zoning. So I'm going to let the two of you kind of co-chair the meeting today. So maybe we can start with the introduction and everything from that standpoint there too.
Go ahead. All right, good morning to the joint session of the City of Estacada's joint Economic Development Commission and Planning Commission, both very competent commissions who very intelligently serve and support Estacada's City Council and the future of Estacada and its citizens. Excited to finally have the opportunity to come together with both committees. This has been great work in the making, and I would like to thank city staff for putting this together amongst very, very busy people in this community. It's a miracle that we should celebrate that everyone was able to come together at this moment, at this time, and to really celebrate that purpose. So I do want to thank everyone involved in that, and I'm very much optimistic and looking forward to our progress today and conversations to get today. As a group, I'd also like to recognize Councillor McElroy, who's here today as well, who is a great city councillor for our city. And I just appreciate you taking the time to listen and to be a part of this as well. Because at the end of the day, it's advice to the city council to make those decisions. And we're just lucky to have a great group of people. Could we go around the room really quickly, because we've got people who haven't met each other or know each other, and maybe this is a great opportunity to break the ice without doing an icebreaker game. So maybe your name, how many years you've served on which commission you're on, and maybe a sentence or two on why you chose to volunteer your services to be a part of this. And Mr. LaGarza, let's start with you.
We're not going to do the icebreakers?
No, I don't like icebreaker games. Yep.
Hey, thank you. John LaGarza, Healthy Sustainable Communities. We provide the fractional economic development support to the city of Estacada here. So,
morning, everyone. I'm Alan Wilson, senior planner for the city, and I've been with the city for going on 4 years now.
Awesome, and doing a great job.
Good morning. I'm Seringa Volk. I'm a business development manager with Portland General Electric. I've been listening in on the Planning Commission meetings for about a year now. My job is to understand the growth that's happening in the city so that PGE can, develop our strategy and plan to support. So thank you for letting me join here and just hear what's going on with the city.
Thank you and welcome. What do you think about our Planning Commission meetings?
I think they're very interesting. It's been, just hearing about the different plans that are going on, but then also kind of the decisions and the, some of the, I guess, some of the analysis of like how you're making your decisions, and how that's going to impact the community and the different factors you need to consider, the business as well as the, citizens' input and how you kind of reconcile some of those. And I understand and respect it's a really difficult thing to make the community happy while also, running the city as a business as it kind of needs to be. And so it's just been, really good to see behind the curtain and understand a little bit more of the complexity of those trade-offs.
Great job, by the way. And PG, it's great to have PGE at the table as we move on as well, because not only does Estacada hold a lot of PGE infrastructure in our community, a lot of its citizens are also PGE employees. And so it's nice to have that to be a part of it.
I'm Julie Aldis. I work for PG also, but I'm local. I
Yay.
run the office at the dams. So I'm just the face of PG for everyone here to help support. So
Awesome.
and I am a local, have lived here my whole life. So
Thank you.
Like Julie, longtime local, lived here my whole life. I think I've been on the planning commission now I think I'm the old guy. I'm, I want to say 17 or 18 years. So before that, I was on city council for 18 months and then I moved out of the city limits. So I have I guess for volunteering in the community because I want to see Estacada do well, whether it's the schools, the sports, or the community itself. So that's why I'm here. I'm a local builder, so I deal with once it gets past this stuff in this room and like putting nails and sticks up. That's my life, and I enjoy that. So,
I'm Scott Stahl. I'm a retired analyst of all things. I was a special projects manager for PepsiCo for I can't even tell you how long. And I don't know. I like projects, and I like data and information, and I have a lot of it, and trying to put the pieces together, and sometimes things work, sometimes they don't, but you always analyze. I'm always analyzing why we're not where we need to be. And if you think any corporate America, especially any Fortune 100 company, I mean, they analyze things to death, and I was part of that. So
Awesome. Thank you,
Yeah.
Scott. And my name is Ryan Carpenter, and I moved into the Estacada community with my family in 2009. And has been the best family decision ever made. Estacada is an awesome spot. I think this is my third year serving on the Estacada Planning Commission, and it's my first year serving on the Economic Development Commission. And my biggest goal this year in both commissions is to learn the vocabulary and the acronyms of city stuff.
good luck.
I'm Eric Sale, and I've been on the Economic Development Commission for, I think, maybe 2 years. My wife and I own Northwest Technologies, which is a company in the industrial park. And, whether it be operating there or in different states in the United States, we live in the economic realities of local planning decisions, state planning decisions, federal planning decisions. And we live in the reality of trying to meld those and to survive.
Yeah.
And so we bring that to the table and trying to make a difference there.
Awesome. Great job.
Yeah, I'm John Eisenberger. I've been on the Planning Commission for about this is my first year on it. As he was saying, I'm still learning a lot of the language and acronyms and zoning and rules and all that. There's a lot to grasp there. I joined the commission because this is a beautiful little town and there's a lot of growth going and building going on. And I'd like to support the existing company like he's got and the infrastructure, and like to see all that coordinated in a nice, positive way. I think, we've got a lot of potential in this town and we'll see it go.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Cindy Moore. I'm with Clackamas County. I'm part of the Office of Economic Development, and it is now my hopefully going to be. I just submitted my application for a second term on the Estacada Economic Development Commission. I've had the pleasure of working for Clackamas County since 2005, and Estacada was one of my first communities that I had the pleasure of working with businesses who are looking to either expand or relocate into Clackamas County / Estacada. So I've been able to come alongside the city staff and act as a kind of part of their bench, if you will, when it comes to serving our business community. So really excited to be here and contribute to today's conversation. Thanks.
My name is Tara Perkins. I've been on the planning commission, I think 4 years. This is my second term. Does that sound right? I have lived here for 6 years. I love it. And I love being a part of the conversations about growth. And I'm excited for this opportunity to sort of collate some of the concerns from the community with making Estacada an economically more viable place with more happening in the downtown and that kind of stuff. Thanks.
Hi, good morning. My name is Aaron Spence. Been on the planning commission for 6 months or so. So this is my first year. We moved out here about 5 years ago, and it's been the absolute best move ever. I used to work out here years and years ago. I just think it's important to try and support the community that you love and live in. So.
Good morning, I'm Jeff Gersh. I'm the newbie on the Economic Development Commission and relatively new to Estacada. We got our place half a dozen years ago. Love it here. And the reason to participate is because it's our home and we want to pitch in.
And is there anyone online that's a commission member that needs to be called on?
Yeah, we have Scott Crosby online.
Okay. Hi, Scott. Can you hear us and introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning. Sorry, I am joining virtually this morning. I am Scott Crosby. I work for Reliance Connects. I'm the liaison for our company to make sure that we're keeping up with all of your guys' projects, making sure that we can deploy fiber to all the homes and businesses and keeping up with technology. So I've been on the planning commission for, I think, a year. It used to be a different committee and we kind of merged those together. So anyways, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. And Reliance Connects has also been a great community partner as well. And just appreciate your company and the services you provide to our entire community. So great job. And thanks everybody for just going around the room and spending 5 or 10 minutes. I think it's nice to be able to put some familiarity with each other. But I also wanted for the public to see, in terms of public record, that there is a group of very competent, intelligent, and passionate people. And our emphasis is to make Estacada a thriving community. And if you hear the themes of all the people and the reason why they volunteered their services to get involved is because they truly love Estacada and want to see it continue to be a long-term success plan. And that's our purpose today. I will take a little bit of the blame for this joint meeting. In fact, it's probably my fault. We're all here together today. But as we worked in the Economic Development Commission, we've been talking about long-term plannings and way to bolster our community from living here and spending money here through the different resources right now. And I think it's an easy stereotype to say we're growing in people choosing to live here, and yet every single person is leaving town to go invest their economic dollars in other communities. And so the charge of the Economic Development Council is really to try to find solutions to keep that here, and so that we can engage the economic development process inside our own city limits and region. And in addition to that, the Planning Commission is all about zoning and growth in zoning and the urban growth plan and all of these things. And so as both of our commissions are moving together on a parallel pathway, we believed it was just best to bring us together so that as we talk about economic development planning in alignment with coding and zoning, all of these things co-inhabit with each other. And so we thought it was best to bring us together in order to understand what we're working on, what the Planning Commission is working on, and try to reach those 5, 10, and 15-year plans together as a team in terms of our support of the City Council. And so that's kind of the why of this meeting today, and I'm very excited to have it. And I have an hour's more worth of stuff to talk about. So with that said, let's move on to the education part of this process in terms of better understanding what we can and can't do.
All right, well, I don't have a whole lot prepared. There's materials in your packet that go over the zones. I'll just kind of give a brief overview of what zones are represented in this new URA zone. So we have the three commercial zones along the highway. So we have highway commercial, outdoor commercial, and riverfront commercial. And the uses and purposes of those zones are in the packet. Like I said, it's right in the beginning. We also have the light industrial zone represented there too. So that's in the, the northwest corner of the city. All the light industrial uses are included there. And we also have the MMU zone, which is our mill area mixed use zone. The city will be doing a comprehensive planning project using money that we secured from a Transportation Growth Management Act this year. So we'll be getting underway this year. There's also some other zones that I don't think are represented in the packet. There's the residential commercial zone that's going to be part of the URA too. Maybe part of the North City residential as well, but I'm basically just here to answer questions about what the things that are allowed in those zones. And yeah, just any planning related stuff there. So yeah, I'll be that resource.
Thank you. John, is there anything?
Yeah, I think also just thank you for the map here. The important thing too is also you'll see some of the city limits here. So like if you look at Estacada, we have parcels. Maybe we want to talk about like that commercial zoning comes in. But we have, you can see stuff that's still in county limits, but it's within our urban growth boundary here too. So does everyone understand that? Kind of see those dotted lines within there. So if you look around the perimeters are urban growth boundary there. So that's the circle we're working within the city component with the state. Again, we talk about Oregon's a land plan state. We got this circle around us, right? But within that circle, we also have our city limits. So we have parcels that are outside of the city, but are inside the urban growth boundary. Everyone understands that? Yeah, that from that standpoint there.
Great. Just to touch on the zoning a little bit and kind of how we got to where we're at with the different zones. Some of the newer zones we have, well, let's go back 2010 era. We used to have 3 residential zones, and we had light industrial, heavy industrial, and then we had commercial. And so if you look at this map from a 2010 era, most of the stuff on the top of the page, the orange crosshatch, the yellow, it was I believe, was it light industrial up there on Eagle Creek Highway?
Yeah, I believe it was.
And so, and help me with a year, was it 2019, 2018, somewhere in that era?
Yeah, a lot of the new zones were created then. Yeah, 2019, 2020. That's when the riverfront commercial, highway commercial, and outdoor commercial, I believe, were created.
And that was developed off of a plan that we hired an outside consultant to come in and say, hey, what can we do to kind of spur growth and mix things up a bit? And so there was a big committee that was brought into this room several times to talk about, what we would like to see at that point in time. And so with that, we've seen that a lot of this on the north end of the city has been developed. Can it be attributed to zoning changes? I think probably so, because it's sat there for 20 plus years not being developed. And as we look back on it now, was it the right move? Well, it depends on whose aspect.
Yes, it was.
It was the right move because it's being developed right now, but it also took away from some of that land inventory that we could have used for light industrial or commercial or something else. So just to kind of give you guys a time or how we got here, a path, I guess. Some of the zones, like the highway commercial is one in particular. The Brown, yeah. So it's largely underdeveloped since we've made this zoning change. In fact, none of it has been touched with the exception of maybe the end lot on, well, no, I guess none of it has been touched. So that's one of those zones that we made and we had some ideas on at the time. And those ideas kind of were like a lead balloon. They floated and they haven't taken off. So and I guess that's why we're here, is to talk about how we can help maybe change away from highway commercial and turn it into something that's a little bit more useful for the community. The last one we'll get into is the outdoor commercial. The green, that's that light green block, or I guess medium green on this map, is the RV park that was developed by Al Rademacher. And then there's another block just north of the Brown there that's undeveloped. And that was another one of those that it sounded good on paper. And what box does that fit in? Well, an RV park, spawned out of it, and it's largely full now. So as we think about this and blend these two committees together, is there something zoning wise that we can do? Because I think we're looking at that from a city level right now, right? It's like how to maybe change some of these zones. We have the mill mixed use that's in the process and with the comprehensive plan. And so keep that in mind. We have the ability to change some of these. Going back a little bit further, there's land inventories that the city is concerned, or that the state is concerned with from a zoning level. And that goes more into residential, right? As far as usable land inventory and
The buildable lands inventory, yes, it's basically concerned with residential.
so as we get into switching zones, does that become a complication at the state level? Because as soon as we get the 4-letter word DLCD involved, that complicates things, right?
It could. I think it's too early in the process to say. I think it's safe to dream at this point. Yeah, I think it's good to throw ideas out and see what council ends up wanting to do. And then we can get into the weeds with that later.
Okay.
But yeah, I wouldn't limit the discussion based on what DLCD might or might not, how they might limit us down the road.
And then one last touch on the residential, just the light yellow portion of this. Estacada is a largely R1 zone. You see some R2 up in the Reagan Hill Heights and Cazadero Heights subdivisions up here. And that's, when you look at the map from the 2010 era, it was largely R1. And so as we get into the housing inventory or the housing needs analysis, the thought of more apartment type complex, multifamily, middle housing is a new tagline that you hear quite a bit now. And so some of these zones have overlays that allow for those types of housing, not just 7,500 square foot lots with single family homes. And so that's kind of how we got here with this map. I hope that helps. And if you have any questions on it, I'm always available to answer.
Couple clarifying, was 2010 the last comprehensive plan?
There's never been a comprehensive plan update. If that makes sense. Yeah. So there's been a lot of amending, editing around the corners, or like when the transportation system plan was updated a couple years ago, the transportation system chapter was updated. When the housing needs analysis and all this comprehensive package of residential code updates was done a few years ago, the housing chapter was redone. Economic development chapter was redone in 2019, I believe, when the EOA was done. So it's just been these kind of like piecemeal updates, but the comprehensive plan was adopted originally in 1980, and it's never been fully updated since then.
Okay, thank you. And then Ben, how many acres would you guesstimate is that Brown Highway commercial?
Oh, there's probably give or take 40 acres, I would say.
Okay. Awesome.
I think that's a 20 on the left side and probably a 20 on the right side of the highway.
Okay.
Ben, is the Estacada storage, is that outside of, is that in the little peak zone?
Storage is in the highway commercial, I think. Yeah.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, that's actually on the corner of the Brown there, for bottom right of the Brown, where it meets the highway.
And one more confirmation, if it's coding wise deemed light industrial, that means commercial is excluded from that.
Retail is excluded.
That's, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Perfect. Okay, anything else in terms of formalities or guiding things? Okay, just really quickly, the intent of this, I know there's just a couple people talking. The intent of this is really to open up for questions, dialogue, and visionary work. I kind of want to just set the picture really to allow everybody to engage and share their thoughts and thoughts in the process. I think at the end of the day, what needs to be established first is a visionary 100,000-foot level approach. While you'll hear me say things like Taco Bell or plug in any fast food restaurant you want to talk about, those are more specific than the actions and strategies that we can do, because in order for us to even move in an economic development direction or even a coding direction is to establish some type of vision, because the vision and the documents ultimately guide the direction of how to ultimately move in these things. And I know that the city of Estacada has a great strategic plan that they just established a few years ago. I know each and every single year the council makes goals aligned to that strategic plan. We've just done a comprehensive transportation master plan. We have a comprehensive plan that sounds like it's just kind of morphed over time into what it is, which is problematic. This is part of the problem that we're in right now. And so really what the crux of this conversation needs to be about is how can we move the visionary leadership ultimately to inspire comprehensive plans that execute the ultimate vision of what that looks like. And the place that I want to start is, what does Estacada, the city of, look like 10 years from now or 20 years from now? As we establish these new industrial neighborhoods, we are finding that newer, younger families are moving into our city in droves. This is a popular price point, and I want to praise the city for its ability to attract families to move into this spot. A side effect of this growth in capacity is and I say this as the leadership of Estacada, including myself, our failure to meet some of the additional needs that come with families moving into this community. And the side effect of that is the families who are moving here are driving to other communities to have their needs met. And so as we look at this overall urban growth boundary, we are constrained into what we can allow in terms of size-wise into these things. What you see here, with great articulation and thoughtfulness of the current time, is you see a hodgepodge of a vision that really tries to meet the needs of these things. And while residential and industrial is outpacing commercial, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by not including commercial as carve-outs as we work through this process. I want to share a brief history of Estacada, which I am not from. I'm not born and raised from Estacada. Like I said, I moved here in 2009, but I get to interact with locals each and every single day. In fact, sometimes handfuls of them. And here's what I know. Estacada used to be a premier logging town. At its height in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, I would consider this community to be a booming town, thanks to PGE, the dams, the building, the river, and the logging industry that came with that. During the height of the logging community, the city of Estacada had 3 grocery stores, a car dealership, and other things that I probably can't list because I wasn't there. We now have triple the amount of people that Estacada had during the heart of the logging days, and we have less economic opportunity than we did 20, 30, 40 years ago. I see that as a fundamental problem in terms of the community we're trying to grow ourselves into. Regardless of if you're pro-growth or anti-growth, we're all still leaving this town to go buy the things we need. And so the challenge that I'd like to bring really to the conversation today is what planning needs to take place in order for us to set ourselves up for success 10 years from now, 20 years from now, so that the people that we're leaving this city in the hands with aren't shouldered with the same problems we're working through right now because of a lack of future visionary planning. And so the final thing that I just kind of want to say before I open it up, and I'm hoping someone can just jump in here and get the conversation going. But here are two problems that I see right now that we're politically working either against or towards, in both at the same time. One is, as Chair Wheeler talked about, one of the problems that we've experienced is a lack of interest from commercial willing to take a risk in opening up a storefront or a bigger size piece of property to open up one of these corporate or bigger stores. But two, we've hampered ourselves a little bit because the things inside the urban growth boundary, or the red dashed line, we've opened it up to mixed, meaning it can be commercial or it can be residential. And we have sold to the first bidder inside of all of that. Not the best, not one that meets our long-term vision and plan, just whoever is ready to write a check. That's not a bad thing, nor is that a criticism, because we need to develop this land and space. As it turns out, it's been home developers that have been the first to purchase this, which is absolutely fantastic. And we welcome anyone who is learning the secret that Estacada is amazing. And we welcome those people as they come. But that's creating a bigger issue in terms of now we have to ask ourselves the question, where does the economic spaces exist inside this red dashed box in order for us to keep the people moving here to spend their money here in those areas? I want to commend Steve Locke and the Locke Company, that old mill property, which you see is purple. It's the first time that we've actually seen real, legitimate, and actionable plans to begin working through this space in terms of bringing in corporate retail and corporate opportunities for our community to engage in. I just don't think that's enough space for what our needs are going to be. The city declared to me about a week ago that we expect these new subdivisions by the First Baptist Church and Old Eagle Creek Highway, those are going to start coming online this year or next year, which is only going to continue to grow our population. I look at the sign right now and it says 6,000 people in Estacada. You drive to a Newburgh, or you drive to a LeGrand, or you drive to a Hermiston or a Pendleton, like we're just a couple years away from being at that point where some of these other bigger communities that have all of these things exist. We're not far away from it. It's going to happen. And so what are we doing right now to make sure that there is space to support the corporate fast food chains and that kind? So that's one political thing, is the mixed residential is hurting us right now because it's going to the first bidder, and that bidder is residential. I would like to challenge us to have a conversation about what that zoning looks like. The second political thing that we all have to be very fragilely careful of is the current downtown versus the vision of a new downtown, or what that looks like. We want to preserve Estacada's historic downtown. We want to honor the people who have taken the risk that we can't seem to find anyone else willing to take to have a business and try to start a livelihood inside our local city population. And I want to thank them and praise them. And I try to support local as much as I possibly can, up to and including buying some of my gifts at the Mossy Rock, which is just a fantastic place to serve and support those things. But the truth of the matter is, in my 17 years of living in this district, all I hear are dreams and visions about, well, if this building closes, or if this store closes, then maybe being the big word, maybe one of these, companies will come in and demolish the spot. Or you think about the open spot next to US Bank. I've heard for 10 years, our hope is that a fast food chain can come in and renovate that spot. Well, I think we need to, at some point, move away from the aspirational desires that the old historic downtown is going to be a place where corporate folks come in and think they're going to renovate and turn into their own thing. I think that the space that's provided inside the old downtown isn't significant enough for anyone to want to take an actual risk on. And so I would also like to challenge this group to think about so many other communities that have a historic downtown and a new downtown. Sherwood has a historic downtown and a new downtown. Sandy has a historic downtown and a new downtown. Newport has I could go on and on and on, but if you want to point out thriving communities, they have both a historic place that celebrates local and a different place that celebrates corporate. But in all of those scenarios, the local citizens and residents stay home and get the things they need inside those communities. And so my challenge for us collectively is, how does economic development cord the people to take a risk? And where does the Planning Commission make a space inside the spot for people to take a risk? And that's our biggest challenge for all of us. And then I'm just going to stop.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Eric.
Well, I echo what Ryan is saying, and I think sometimes we look at, we have a lot of ideas, but there's no physical space to follow it up. And so part of that is to say, hey, the best time to plant a tree would have been 10 years ago. Second best time is today. It's saying, well, what is left? What can we grab? What can we start to plan around? What can we change to make that happen? And then take inventory and say, even in our current downtown core, what is there that would no longer fit zoning if we were trying to build out the city? There are ODOT spaces and garages. There are large garages there that there is a place for in our industrial area. But how do we promote movement to that in order to have that downtown be fully built out? But then also looking other places and saying, how do we put a place that a grocery store might exist? Where does that go? When we're looking down the road and saying, hey, there might be a high school built or different things like that in the future, how do we correlate that with the land that the high school's on versus another piece of land? What does that look like to even look at trading pieces out? And how do we make that? So far over the years, it's been a lot of saying, we don't have a choice. We have to let that happen. We can't stop that. So if that's the case, then why are we here? We just let it happen, and why are we trying to do anything different? There has to be some ways in which we can strategize to get what we want. So I would be excited to see how we do that. But I also see, I'm in the industrial area and I see that develop over time. But I also see that it seems that people can come with ideas and affect approved zoning areas based on they have an idea and they want to develop and they get approved for that. So in our industrial area, we now have a 100-unit RV park on the way in. So now all of a sudden we have forklift traffic, we have truck traffic, we have all these things, and we have kids riding bikes, and we have people pushing strollers, and we have dogs running in and out. This is not good. This is why zoning exists. So we have those problems. They start to preclude the people that are going to come out there and occupy those things because we chose to take the short money instead of the long money. And so when we look at these things, years ago when we had lawnmower races and stuff like that out here, there was those big fields and areas that would have been the grocery store. That would have been the new downtown. So we really have to buckle down and grab the space that's going to be what the community is going to look like. Sometimes we go and we get reports and things like that, like the one I think we're going to look at here from the Johnston group, but that report for some reason totally excludes our neighbor Sandy. Not referenced, not used at all, but the biggest influencer. That is where most of our people are going. Sandy bears the cost of our lack of planning. Yes. They think, do we need another grocery store? They think, do we need more development? Well, they are thinking that because they're bearing the weight of Estacada community in their Sandy community. So if Estacada ever does fix this, pulls it out of there, now it creates this drag through their planning where they won't have the commercial support for the businesses that they created. So we have a responsibility to grab these things and to plan. But all along the way, from what I've heard so far as we've talked about this, is that we have no choice. We have to let it happen. There's nothing we can do about it. That's been this. So I think here we're looking, is that true? Is that true? Then what can we do about it? What can we grab? How do we make that different?
Others.
I think you've both set up the problem perfectly and the opportunities ahead perfectly. So maybe one comment and a question. I keep thinking about, okay, if I'm a developer and I want to build some lodging here, or I want to put up a new restaurant or any number of things, where would I go? Who in the planning department would tell me where, well, we have these 15 lots available for these uses. Come on in and let's look at those together. I don't know that those spaces are even available for those uses currently. So I suppose my question is, what is a process for us to move forward with creating a kind of vision in which we can attach some strategy as you have laid out? What does that look like, John and Alan and others?
I appreciate the question. To go back to what Chair Carpenter was talking about and what Chair Wheeler was talking about, and this happens, I've seen this happen to a lot of cities within Oregon, right? So your comprehensive plan is your aspirational vision plan. That's your overarching plan. And that would be something that this commission or this group could maybe think about, is that the challenge that cities have in Oregon is the state used to give funding so you could update your comprehensive plan. Estacada back in the 80s was a very slow growing city. And now it's growing very fast, and that comprehensive plan is outdated, right? Alan's just been able to do certain little updates as you go, but really what the conversation could be thinking is like a recommendation to city council about going in. And what happens in that process would be a group of like this community could be the TAC committee for that, but is going in and just having those discussions that you were talking about, is updating your comprehensive plan, right? To show what your visions are. Where do you want to see maybe future public services for schools? Where do you want to see additional zoning for commercial or downtown? So once the comprehensive plan's done, then you can go in and you can take a deeper dive in your development code to look at where you can create that flexibility for those different types of uses, right? So I think thinking about one would be updating your comprehensive plan, looking at what the available lands we have inside the city limits and outside the city limits, still within UGB, and thinking about how you would want to reshape that moving forward. That could be a great conversation that I think this joint commission could think about having from that standpoint. So that's how the process goes. So comprehensive plan, it's overarching, it goes to the state, it's filed with the state. That's what your vision is as a city, and the city leaders, that's what you have from that standpoint. And then it goes down to the development code, which gets into the particular parcels and the lots from that standpoint there in the zoning.
In all due respect, that is another process, and that is years, and that leads to this being all built out. And in that case, our only hope is that somebody like Steve Locke goes and buys the lot on Industrial Way down by the river, or that somebody goes and buys the only housing that's up on the north side. That would, as we go down that route, our only hope is that somebody looks at this plan and thinks about what could be and thinks about what's left and buys it right now while this planning is going on. Because otherwise we will continue this problem and we will just continue to build houses in the available space.
Yep.
We'll complete our plan with no tools left at our disposal.
We'll choke ourselves out for sure over time. Yeah.
I wanted to echo what Eric said about the downtown, and there being a lot of spaces that are not commercial, like the ODOT garages, and Reliance connects multiple buildings. And we do have an industrial area so close and with available land in it. And I do wonder if there's something that we can seriously consider to encourage people that are occupying space down here, because we don't really have a functional historic downtown right now.
Right.
We have, there's not, like you go to Troutdale or something and there's stuff is being built right now. There's new restaurants and things going in, and you could spend a day or half a day walking around down there. You can't spend 10 minutes walking through the stuff that we have. It's like two blocks, and businesses struggle to stay happening down there. And I think part of it is because it's just not an attractive place to spend time right now, because you just can't walk around.
Yeah.
And what would it really take to do that? And I'm more interested in the historic downtown space than a corporate one. I'm glad that you are.
For sure. Yes.
That's not as much my interest. But that's something that just, it constantly comes up in conversation.
Yep.
What we have to remember is, so far as new versus old, especially in Estacada, the new drives the old. When we bring in the new, if you look at, I grew up, we moved from Montana to Gresham. Gresham was nothing more than the core downtown that Gresham was when I moved there. And basically over time, over the 40 or 50 years we lived there, everything around Gresham built up, and did its thing, and the downtown there became vital again because what was going on around it. The new will drive the old, because people want to go for dinner. They're going to go, there's restaurants in downtown Gresham. Those buildings have been there since I was a kid, since I was 12 years old. I can remember riding my bike around there, and this is the same thing Estacada has to realize. That's what's going to happen. Downtown's not going to go away. It's going to see new money later in the process as we build the new out. And that's the way to think about it, I think, because it's example after example. Every town he mentioned down across Oregon, that's exactly what happened to it. New opportunities for citizens to have a restaurant in Estacada. Now they have population to support.
We have the population. We just don't have any of the stuff.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, the population doesn't support it because go to Sandy, go to Clackamas, go to Oregon City, go anywhere else,
Right.
because there's variety there. There's things happening there, If you had, a mass of people always hitting downtown Estacada, well, people draw people. Frito-Lay taught me that a long time ago in one of their sessions, that everything's about movement. The more movement you have down there, the more money that flows.
Yeah.
It's just simple stuff,
Yeah, and I want to acknowledge that point, because I 100% agree with it. And I do think that, right now, as you said, the old downtown is really a destination spot if you're coming in for that specific thing or that specific purpose. And what we're missing out is when people go to Oregon City, Fred Meyers, or they go to Sandy, Fred Meyers, or even into Happy Valley, where I know some of our families go to as well, they end up choosing to stay and hit those restaurants in those locations because the destination has taken them there in the first place. Or you go to Costco in Clackamas and we're stopping for the hot dog as the example on the way out. And we need some type of infrastructure like that gets that movement flowing. But the bigger piece of your point that I think is absolutely vital for us is that we also can't let corporate downtown, or we can't let the new dictate and take away the identity and culture of what Estacada is. And that's why I believe this is such a pivotal point. I cannot emphasize this enough. We're going to lose control if the leaders in Estacada who love Estacada, who know its values, we should be the people at the forefront dictating how this goes and where this looks and what's qualifiable and not qualifiable. Because at some point, be that 10 years from now when we're 12,000 people, or 20 years from now when we're 22,000 people, which will happen, mark my words, we will have no control over what happens, and we will have no plan that supports that process. And so I think what you said was big, that we as Acadians have to take control so that we can protect what we love and know as our community.
I think as you use the term control, it's not about holding or dictating.
Correct.
It's just about, responsible planning and being strategic about what's available to build a community in the future, to be a part of laying the groundwork. It's not about a dictatorship type of
Correct.
a relationship.
No, thank you for clarifying that. You're absolutely right. Go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody's context and why we're here and what we're talking through. And I'm just wondering, using this map, which is such a great resource, if we were to focus our conversations and maybe just pick hotspots is maybe a term to use. Like if we're going to look at the downtown collectively, both bodies, let's look at the downtown. What do we like? What do we don't like? Kind of to Eric's point, what
Yeah.
can we do and what can't we do?
Yeah.
And maybe that would help focus from
Right.
overall philosophy, now that we
Yeah.
all kind of know where we're coming from,
Yep.
to some tangible actions. And I know we're close on time, but
Yeah.
that could be a way to move the conversation forward,
Love
be it the industrial park, be it the downtown, be it the
Yeah.
residential, kind of what we like in this zone and what we maybe have opportunities to make
Yeah.
tweaks to.
Yep.
That could be a step forward.
No, I love it. And just to piggyback off of that and keep us moving in that direction, one of the things I want to do is I want to honor that purple area where Locke is truly our first investor in that group. And I've seen the master plans that, as you go down, what is that, 224? That's kind of the main thoroughfare of what I think the future, like main vein of entry is going to be into our community. And I know that purple area is going to have roads that come through it to access the upper community and residential areas. And so I do think it would be wise of us to have the conversations about what that particular area looks like and how that can be zoned in a way to accord. I hate to use the word strip mall, but grocery store / L-shaped restaurants, kind of little Verizon stores and that kind of stuff. Where is a place that can do that? And speaking with Scott, and while I think someday we will have a Fred Meyer's, it's just not tomorrow. But Fred Meyer's, that's a 40-acre plot in order just to plunk that thing down. Maybe Safeway's a half of the size of that, 20 acres if we're guessing. And so even if you look at the Brown, which is why I asked that question of Chair Wheeler, is Brown is 40 acres-ish, like that serves a couple of things. And I think with the vision of the Locke Construction Company, that serves a couple of things, plus a much needed senior living and some other things inside of that as well, athletic parks and some other great stuff. The other thing that I think we need to stop talking about is I keep hearing this drumbeat about potentially making, what's that neighborhood called across the highway there? Lakeshore. I keep hearing this dream that someday Lakeshore is going to be this thriving metropolis of foot traffic and downtown, but and I could be wrong because I know nothing about what I'm talking about when it comes to this, but I refuse to believe that any entity is going to come in here, evict 500 people, bulldoze all their towns. Like just the PR alone in that process is impossible. And so that's an area I think we need to take entirely off of the table because we're trying to build 100 studio apartment complex down there and we can't even get that thing rolling on the ground in terms of what that looks like. And so, finally, and I know I keep talking, but this is where I blame Estacada in like 1930 for even putting a residential area down there in the first place. Like that waterfront should be the most valuable property we have at our disposal. Jedediah Estacada from 1896 decided that that's a great spot to start plunking houses. And we continue to battle our past in terms of what the planning is. And I just want to end that. So Thank you. You moved us in the right direction, and then I'm gonna yield the rest of my time until we
Okay,
conclude.
I do want to say, I don't want you guys to spend a whole lot of time on the mill site because we're doing the planning through the TGM grant, as Alan mentioned,
Yeah.
which is very involved, invested in the mill site. And so if you spend a lot of time on that today, you're just going to be duplicating efforts.
Sure.
So,
Yep.
you know, we'll highlight that. We'll do very deep dive into the mill
Yep.
site as we work through the TGM grant.
Yeah.
But you're looking at other areas in
Yeah,
town. might
but
be more
coding
valuable.
around that would be to our best interest,
Yes,
I think.
yes,
Yeah.
around it.
Is not part of the outdoor commercial and the highway commercial, the brown and the green along the highway, some of that wetlands and not really prime developable for industry?
I would say predominantly the green, the outdoor commercial is, it's kind of in that
That's
low
part
layer.
of that brown on the far side, opposite side from the industrial park.
Mhm.
So it seems like we're kind of, even though we've got that allocated as that, I don't know that a big store or something is gonna do that
I think
on
that's,
it.
I think it's a great point. That's why I go
Yeah.
back to the, you know, I'm going to keep bringing up updating your comp plan, because when you go through that, you identify some of your wetlands, what's really usable, what's not usable, what's the slopes on some of these sites here. I guarantee you the comp plan still probably talked about the mill site. Maybe it's been updated a little bit on the mill site, but what your vision is, what you're talking about for larger commercial spaces and studying that corridor, because we probably have lands that are not really developable at all, that we ought to be, you know, changing that zoning and really thinking about that coming in through that corridor. So really on these commercial pieces, and then to your aspirational or vision point, again, that comp plan sets the vision for leaders like yourselves, what you're thinking of for 20 years from now.
Yep.
Where do you want to see, if you want to come into this town and you want to see a grocery store, how are you going to do that? And looking at where that could possibly be set up would be what that group would recommend. And you talk about that in your comp plan. And then you would adjust your zoning to allow those uses for that when it can happen from that standpoint there.
I also wanted to add too, just to your point about wetlands and, you know, developable or non-developable areas. The city was just awarded a grant to do its own local wetland inventory. And that will be happening, I think, probably in the next year or so. So we will have a comprehensive wetland inventory of the city, and that will guide decisions about where we should, for zoning and just what lands are viable for development.
Do we have a plan on updating? I know you said we can only do the comprehensive plan so often, but it seems a lot of this is outdated, like the green or the open space public facilities. I guess public facilities, that's a weird combination to me, open space public facilities, because you include a park in there, but we also have the high schools and what's now the sewer treatment plant included in that green area.
The high schools or the schools are all in the low density residential zone.
So we have a double-sided thing here, just so everybody kind of understands the difference. The zoning is where we're at currently. And then if somebody is on the zoning side of things, if it's the white and black check mark that's county land currently, if it gets annexed into the city, it'll come in under the comprehensive plan designation on the other side. And so there is some discrepancies. If you look in the north middle of the top of the page here, it's white on the zoning side, but if you come over to the other side, it's a mix between the green and the orange stripe. So that's currently not in the city, but if it comes into the city with just a normal annexation and no zoning change, that's what it would be allocated as. And so
I was looking at the in the plan here, you've got of
You're looking at it,
BLI,
yeah, let's see.
the buildable land index includes parks and open space, the whole school, the middle of the downtown is included in that, including the park and.
Is that from the
Actually,
EOA
across-
report?
Hmm?
That's from the EOA report?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was prior to the current zoning map. So that's not necessarily what it currently is.
Yeah, so that was my comment. Some of this looks like it needs to be updated pretty good.
Yeah, and it has been updated from when the EOA was done in 2019.
Something just occurred to me, and I was just when I was looking at this map, especially with the outdoor commercial, especially around 211, 224 there, you're servicing two different customers here. The MMU, the mill property, services the residents of Estacada. That's the way that plan looked like. You know, if you look at what Lockett's done with that, you know, preliminarily, he's servicing the cities with the MMU. You know, where you have a grocery store, you have professional buildings there for maybe a consolidated medical services, schools, other things like that. Maybe people that want to live in condominiums, that sort of thing. That's what that area is primarily servicing. What's going along 211, 224 there is basically servicing transient customers. The traffic that comes up and down that road day in and day out, which is pretty much everybody in Estacada and everybody that comes through here going to Malala or wherever they're heading to, you know, or people going up the gorge. They're just two different customers altogether. So you have to think about it like that, you know. You know, think about, you know, how are they going to be successful? You know, what you're building. You know, the industrial area, you know, condenses itself because industrial people use each other all the time. I know Eric, other businesses in the industrial thing use his business and he probably uses their services, you know, back and forth. It's a concentration of that, you know, and that's a great thing, you know. So we have to think about, you know, when you're zoning some of this stuff, what you're trying to attract to that, you know. One problem I have with especially that strip that goes down to 11, one is topography. The topography is horrible down there. The other part of it is what do you do to traffic if you're putting businesses up along that corridor? What are you going to do to get them back onto that highway, especially people moving at 55 miles an hour all the time, or mostly more, because everybody's going a lot faster than that usually.
That is a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge for that, you know. And I know what Texas does with it, that, you know, they do something crazy, like they put an access road, you know, they do access roads. They're going into, I don't know what they call those.
Yeah.
Those things. It made me crazy the first time I saw it, but, you know, and I go, well, then you have no space for anything else. You know, 'cause you put another roadway in there and then all of a sudden you got this little itty bitty patch against a side hill there and you're going, okay, what can we put there? Well, that could be a Taco Bell, sure, but you know,
Totally.
or something else, you know, maybe a small mini mall. Go ahead.
So it may be a great idea to do a brand new comprehensive plan, but I agree with the commissioners who worry about the time involved in doing that and then what happens here during that. So I'm wondering if there is a way to more quickly get to a vision that we can apply more directly and quickly to zoning. Because much of the comprehensive plan is really stuff that maybe doesn't have to change that much.
Sure.
You know, we know where the roads are and we know what the slopes are in most places and that sort of thing.
Sure.
What we're really talking about is the vision piece. So how could we more quickly get to that? And then sort of the second thing is, I wonder if one of the things that would really help us is some kind of catalyst. And maybe the old mill property is the catalyst that we need in this community to really jumpstart a lot of fresh ideas and new creative thinking. But if we had one new super exciting thing that we could say is happening now, that we all agree is part of the vision of Estacada and that was being built, that would create some excitement and some momentum and something to point to and something to talk about. So what is that thing that we could do that would be catalytic right now?
Yep. And marketing plays a big role inside of that. I love your question because I think that's where we really need advice or guidance on where to go next and how to push this forward. In conclusion, because I think we have an Economic Development Council meeting starting 8 minutes ago. One, I want to give Chair Wheeler an opportunity. You've been pretty quiet, and so I wanted to give you at least a chance to speak if you'd like to.
I think this group session probably deserves more time than 1 hour. And I think, to Jeff's point, Jeff, right?
Yep.
Maybe going through this map and taking a red Sharpie and Xing off the things that we know are either already developed and aren't going to be redeveloped, are sacred, or are just not a viable option. And one thing, and sorry I get into the nuts and bolts of planning and zoning. I've lived in this world too long, so on this commission. But one thing about Estacada that periodically gets brought up and is probably undersold is we're geographically constrained. And that term was brought out earlier. We have a hillside here, we have a river here, and we have a big urban growth boundary that kind of lends us to developing that direction. And so we're kind of making that natural progression, but a lot of this stuff in the yellow is geographically off limits for a store that's 20,000, 40,000 square feet or 40 acres. And so as I see it, as we morph into whatever we do, the things we're talking about are the purple, the brown, the green, and the pink.
Yeah.
And I know that we have an industrial park, and Eric, I appreciate your comments about the forklifts and kids on bikes. It's not something I've thought about it, but you're living it with your employees and what's going on in the industrial park there. What mixes well with an industrial park is industrial. And that's about it. Like, you don't want to put a ball field out there for obvious reasons. So, like, do we have to talk about expanding the urban growth boundary to some of this land that is otherwise, and I say useless because it doesn't farm well. Everything north of the city towards Eagle Creek, unless you're grazing cows or chickens or something on it, it doesn't grow Christmas trees, it doesn't grow timber, but it's outside of that urban growth boundary. And so that's some of that usable land that, while it's not on the right side of the red and white light line, it's fairly easily developable because it's by a highway. We've got a brand new wastewater treatment plant coming online here in a little while that has capacity, and it makes sense to go that direction. So if it's not, getting back to this, if it's not in the brown, the purple, the pink, maybe it's in the white off this page of paper that we start going. That's where the dart is.
Yeah.
You know, we're already driving to Sandy. Is it really that big of a deal to drive a mile outside of the current city limits and put a Safeway, you know, between Folsom and Hypel somewhere?
Yep.
Yep.
So,
And I couldn't agree more with that. And like, I would say that's kind of what I think our aspiration is to do, is to begin filling in those. But can you confirm for me, I just heard recently that there may not be an appetite at this moment to expand the urban growth boundary, because even that hampers visionary leadership.
Yes, I would say, and I can't speak for council, but I haven't heard anything that would make me think that council's interested in that at that time. I've heard a lot from the community that there would be a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
If there was an effort to enlarge the urban growth boundary. Also, it's quite difficult to do that at the state level, to get DLCD, the Department of Land Conservation Development, to get them to buy into it. There's still a lot of developable land within the urban growth boundary, and that's what they'll look at. They'll say, well, you want to expand the growth boundary, but you have all this land that hasn't annexed in and is developable. There are other mechanisms. Sometimes, you know, cities do swaps. They say, well, we don't want the airport. You know, we're not interested in having that. Maybe we'll take that chunk and we want to, you know, actually go up the highway a little bit more. So if there were appetite for it, there are some things that the city could look into, but yeah, that would be a question for council.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, and that's perfectly fine. It's just, we can all do the math, and 5 or 10 years from now, we're going to suffocate this. And I just don't want 5 or 10 years from now to be like, oh crap, we need to do something, when you can see this occurring from 100 years away where this is going. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
2 quick questions before we close, if
Yep.
I may. For Planning Commission, first of all, thank you all so much for your work over the years. It is a heavy lift to be on the Planning Commission and do all that you do. So just a general thank you for that. 2 quick things. The areas that are currently in unincorporated Clackamas County that are within the UGB but are not annexed to the city. So when we break and we do our grand planning between both and then come back together, because I'm imagining we're going to do that. When we talk about these parcels that are not yet colored, Those property owners, do they have to annex into the city in order for us to do anything? Okay,
Yes.
yes, okay, so just for everybody to consider, we can do all the dreaming that we want, but it's
Right.
still property owners' opportunity to embrace that or annex into the city if any growth wants to happen there.
There
Yep.
used to be a process for annexing by election,
Uh-huh.
but we don't do that anymore. I think that was prohibited at the state level
Okay.
some years ago. So that's still on the books.
Yeah.
Like that chapter is still on the books in our code, but property owners elect to annex and then they go to planning commission and city council to get approval for that.
Okay, thank you. Just for general awareness for everybody as
Yep.
we're kind of dreaming about what we're gonna look like 20 years from now.
Yes.
The second is a definition question. From the planning commission or from the zoning ordinance, what is the high level distinctions between commercial and retail? Because
Oh.
sometimes they're interchanged and I
Yeah.
just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I think that they are often used interchangeably. There's probably definitions in our municipal code, in the development code about that.
Okay.
Commercial/retail. Yeah.
Yeah, just in general. So if we're talking about, a big box retailer, that's like
Right.
retail, but what does commercial mean? Is that like a
Sandy
dentist
has a
office or?
commercial-
Yeah.
Their C2 zones are commercial slash.
I think commercial is more, is broader.
Mhm.
Retail is basically, I think, customers coming in, buying a thing at a time. But commercial could be wholesaling as well, which isn't necessarily
And
residential.
it could be service-based businesses too. So like doctors
Yeah.
and.
Wouldn't it be something like Fred Meyer's is up in Sandy where you have the commercial building and you also have a gas station hooked to it? Commercials.
Sure. And Quiznos and Burger King.
And Burger King
Figueroa's
and Figueroa's and all that.
That's the
Yeah.
reason why I asked,
Yeah.
just so we can all kind of have that in our heads, like for
Yeah.
Estacada, what does that mean? Commercial and residential for our
Yeah.
town or our planning purposes. It doesn't have to be answered right now, but
Mhm.
just something
Yeah.
for the greater combo. Thank you.
Okay, you want one more? Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
It helps to have examples, and I'm wondering if there are some other community examples across Oregon and maybe in other places too that we should be drawing from. And how would we do that? Do we want to invite some of those people to come in? Are there planners at PSU who have those examples and they could come in and do some presentations? Maybe we just need a little help to picture our way out of this, because I know for myself, when I look at this, my eyes glaze over. I don't know how to plan from
Yeah.
this, but I could plan from some comparison examples.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep. And I think yes is the answer to that question. I also know I was a part of a small committee. Maybe you were there as well. Maybe, I think you were there too, maybe, but we were partnering with students from the University of Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
And they're doing a big research project, I think, to kind of help us a little bit with this and tell us what our needs are as well. And I don't know when the deliverable date is from the U of O on that project.
We had that. I think you were
I think you
gone
missed
on
that last.
So
that was
they-
the
Oh,
session.
But to answer your
How'd it
question,
go?
I
Just
think one of the
kidding.
things, go back to the comprehensive plan. The city can go through a periodic voluntary process through that. Sandy just recently did theirs. So that might be helpful just to have, I'm thinking, Alan, just to bring some of their brochures so you can see their inspiration. They hand it out. If I'm Fred Meyer's or Safeway coming in, I got a good vision of where I would go if within the city, right? It gets, and again, that vision of what you're trying to broadcast out to the community, right? Thinking of like how you would look at this from that standpoint. And then to back to Alan's point, you're still going to have to go through and, we're doing the wetlands update, right? That's good information to be thinking about updating your vision, your comp plan, and then getting into your point on the development code. What is our C2 zoning, our C1 zoning? What is that allowed? Really taking a deeper dive into what are those dimensions allowed in that space? We can create that and that flexibility and look at what that is for an attraction standpoint. So I think we could have, for your next meeting, we could have maybe Sandy come and show you what they did for their comprehensive plan update, talked a little bit about the benefit of updating some of your EOAs, buildable land areas, and then thinking about where your future zoning would go overall, and then a deeper dive in your development code. These things take time. I'm sorry, unfortunately, I know you want quick action, but again, having that comprehensive overall vision plan to hand out to people who come in and looking to invest in your community, that's an important thing to have. But then also understanding what your development code allows them to do, because they will look at that, and until the retail market, if they can capture that, they're not going to come. You know, we're not going to get Safeway until that we have enough residential capacity here to support that. They just will not invest here. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, but there might be a smaller grocery store, right?
Yeah.
So just understanding those numbers and that data is important.
For sure. Although I'm confident the residential capacity is on the precipice.
Yeah, it's going to
of
keep going up.
being right
Yeah.
there. I mean, that conversation is should already be in the works, without a doubt. So in conclusion, I would like to thank everybody for the time, and I hope that people felt they had the ability to share, participate, ask, in an equitable way. And I hope this is just meeting one of multiple conversations in terms of what that visionary work looks like, so that we can best support and guide and advise the council in terms of thinking about what Estacada 10 years from now, Estacada 20 years from now looks like. But I think we've drawn a general conclusion that currently our planning status has us in a residential rich and commercial poor environment. And the result of that is everyone is taking their money and going somewhere else to spend it, which is a problem for the charge of the Economic Development Commission and a problem for the Planning Commission when it comes to coding, zoning, and granting, what do you call those when people ask to addendums or variances? We just say yes to every variance. Yes. Okay, go ahead. Sure. You want a septic? Go ahead. And so how can we be more disciplined in the overall vision to hit those marks? And I believe that if we can get our commercial more in line with the demands of our residentials, it actually becomes quite cyclical. The better we do commercial, the more residential we have. The more residential we have, the better we do commercial. And ultimately, it supports a thriving community, which everybody is hungry for, dependent upon pro-growth or not pro-growth. At the end of the day, we're going to grow. And I'd rather be a community that says, oh, we have a plan for that, instead of a community that's like, oh crap, now what do we do? Let's give some more variances out. Okay. PGE, anything?
Not from the utility perspective, but I appreciate, being able to join this conversation and listening to all the different perspectives. And there's a couple of things that were said that I just kind of was thinking about a little bit more. There's been a lot of, the residents driving out to other communities to do their economic transactions. And I wonder if, and maybe you have this, but if there is data or a deep understanding about what the citizens feel is missing from Estacada. I understand the lack of a grocery store is a big thing, but I'm just kind of thinking like, what would be those other things that community members would stay in Estacada for if they were here?
Yeah.
And then using that, setting that as your strategy of how do we target these specific types of businesses.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't think it's just a matter of land availability, but like some of those big grocery stores, they have their own companies that they want to be located next to. It's not just about the population, but like a Costco, they look for other companies in a geographic vicinity and want to build because there are those other landmarks there.
Yep.
And so I just think about like building out the strategy, really thinking it's holistically when coming up with that zoning and comp plan is like, okay, if we want a grocery store here, we have to make space for these other types of retail here. And I get it's like very complex, but I just kind of wonder how much, how much data from the citizens' perspective there is, but then also if there's been those hard conversations with those grocery stores to say, what are you?
Yep. Yeah.
What exactly are you looking for so that you can then strategically plan to make those available in the community?
Yeah, very well said. Thank you.
On a recreational, because I do work with the parks team and all that, that's a major issue out here. We have no hotels. Even for work alone, we have workers that are coming from other generation sites and we have to send them to Clackamas or Sandy because there's no hotels here.
Yes.
So, and obviously we're more seasonal for our recreation here with the river and all that. But like we get calls all the time, and our parks are not open year round because they
Right.
can't be. But you know, like, why not? Or where can I stay? And again, we have to send them out of town.
Yeah.
So I just a bug, I guess, plug a bug that the hotel or something we have year round for people to stay. And it doesn't necessarily have to be huge,
Yeah.
but we need something here.
Yeah.
So.
Very good. And I think we all agree with that. And Eric Sales' comments should be our motivating factor from this meeting to the next one. And that is Sandy is actively planning to commercially grow to continue to steal our money.
More active.